Welcome back to the Brahmin Word. And because of a meeting that I had in Columbus representing our church, I was not able to be on this past Thursday, but I wanted to make sure that we kept going with our look at the seven churches, encouraging you as it's encouraging me. But I just wanted to keep that going before Tuesday. So, with that being said, this one's actually not very long either, the actual text. But of course, that means that there's still plenty to talk about. So, with that being said, let's go to Revelation chapter 2. We're going to be looking at verses 8 through 11. So, Revelation chapter 2, verses 8 through 11. And this is actually one of the very few, actually, just this one and another one, the Church of Philadelphia, that is only given a positive review. When we get through all the seven churches, we will kind of do just a review of this whole section and how we as believers are really supposed to take it. And so that will be later. But today we are focused on a church called Smyrna, Smyrna. So let us get to there and let's read it first. So Revelation chapter 2, verses 8 through 11. And to the angel of the church in Smyrna write, the words of the first and the last, who died and came to life. This continues this pattern of going back to chapter 1 and the way that Jesus described himself. And the first and the last here is going back to his description of himself being Alpha and Omega. Those are the first and the last letters in the Greek alphabet. So he is just trying to get the idea that he is the first and he is the last. He is outside of time and space. And not only that, though, he died and came back to life. And that is really, really cool to see. So with that, verse 9. I know your tribulation and your poverty, but you are rich, and the slander of those who say that they are Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. All right, there's a lot in this one verse. So let's take a look at this. First off, it's interesting to see that there is a parenthetical reference in the middle of this verse, but you are rich. And I think it's supposed to show that it's not talking about a monetary stance, that you are seeing that the people, the members of the church in Smyrna are rich. Because in poverty, I think you are supposed to take that monetarily because it is connected to the fact that they are going through tribulation. So they are going through a very, very rough time. They are being very much hit financially because of that, but they are rich. And the reason why they're rich is because they are rich spiritually. And we'll see exactly why in verses 10. Mostly in verse 10. We'll see why that is in verse 10. But the other part that's interesting, of course, is the way that this ends. In the slander of those who say that they are Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. So is Jesus talking about Satanists here? Is he literally talking about a church of Satan? No, I don't think so. Instead, I think what he's really getting at is those that look like they are doing all the right things, or those that say that they are Jews, but they're not. They are a synagogue of Satan. So instead of just saying that you are something, you also have to back that up. And that's what the members at the Church of Smyrna do, as we'll see in verse 10. And that's what Jesus wants you and I to do. Yes, he wants you and I to proclaim the gospel, and he wants you and I to tell people that we follow after Jesus and that we love Jesus. But it's not just good to say those things, even though that's important, but we also have to show that we love Jesus. We have to show that we are followers of Jesus. Doesn't mean that we are given salvation because of the things that we do. But because of the things that we do, after saying that we are followers of Jesus, people can then see, hey, this person not only says that they are a follower of Jesus, but they are actually showing that they are by the things that they do. And so that, I think, is what Jesus is trying to get across here in verse 9. That there are some that say one thing and then do another. And people could ask, okay, does this happen in the Christian church? Absolutely, it does. You have people come into your local church and sit in the back row weeks and weeks and weeks and will say, I believe in Jesus. But then if you look at their life, nothing's changed. And nothing is to show that they are actually following Jesus. And so that will make you go, you know what? You say that you are a follower of Jesus, but you're not. Instead, you're in this going through the motions and you're not actually a believer. I think that is what Jesus is trying to get across in verse 9. But thankfully, the church at Smyrna is very, very firm in their faith. And let's take a look at that in verse 10. Do not fear what you are about to suffer. Behold, the devil is about to throw some of you into prison, that you may be tested, and for 10 days you will have tribulation. Be faithful unto death, and I will give you the crown of life. So Jesus gives very much a warning to these folks in the Church of Smyrna, saying, hey, there's going to be not just tribulation by word, but there's going to be persecution that is coming after you. People are going to end up in prison. You are going to be tested. There's going to be tribulation. It could possibly go unto death at the end of verse 10. Is that mentioned there as well? And so there is going to be a lot of tribulation that comes upon these believers that were in the Church of Smyrna. Now, why is that, though? Well, Smyrna was actually, like Ephesus, a very important city, but the reason why it was so important is because it was very connected and definitely had a admiration for the Caesars and just for the Roman Empire in itself. So, especially around the time of, like, Emperor Nero, you have just this very difficult conflict amongst the Roman Empire and their Caesars and the followers of Jesus. And so it makes sense why Smyrna itself is being described as one that is, hey, you're going to have persecution. And the reason why is because of the close ties that Smyrna has with the Caesars and just the Roman Empire in general. So that is why that shows up. But I do love this last phrase in verse 10, though. Be faithful unto death, and I will give you the crown of life. Now, does that mean that we are all going to be martyred for our faith? Not necessarily, right? There's plenty of believers that have lived and have died from natural causes. John himself is actually the only disciple that was not martyred. But it doesn't mean that you're not running your race well and that you're not being faithful. I think there's two ways to look at this. Yes, he's talking about a martyrdom death. He's talking about a death that's being brought about by persecution for your faith. But I think he's also just talking about being faithful for your whole entire spiritual walk until the moment of your death. I think he's referencing that as well at the end of verse 10. And because of that, you will get the crown of life. But again, it's not because you have done anything. It's because of your faith. That's what gets you the crown of life. But at the same time, make sure that you continue to hold on to that faith, even during times that are very, very difficult. And so I definitely appreciate this message from Jesus to the church in Smyrna. And then, as we've seen before, with the first part of chapter 2 in the first church, verse 11, he who has an ear, let him hear what the Holy Spirit says to the churches. The one who conquers will not be hurt by the second death. The second death is actually a flash forward to the end of the book of Revelation in chapter 20, or sorry, it might be 21. Chapter 20 or 21, where you're talking about the great white throne judgment and how at the very end of time, where those that do not profess Jesus as Lord are thrown into hell for eternity. Being thrown into hell is the second death. And so that's what is being referenced to in verse 11 here. So it's kind of like a flash forward to that. But again, it's really, really cool to see, as we talked about last time, that not yes, this letter was written to the members of the church in Smyrna, but was written to every single believer because of verse 11. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. So with that being said, thank you for spending a little bit of time with me today, as I wanted to make sure that we got a look through the second church, but more definitely a look at how to stand firm in our faith, even during times of tribulation and possibly persecution. So with that being said, thank you for spending time with me. I will see you on Tuesday as we look at our next church, which is the church in Pergamum. So I will see you then. Thanks.